One of the problems with aviation is the fact that you have to predict so much of how you're going to actually use something. And the truth is, most people can't. They have an idea, but until you actually have access to something or you actually are in a management program, we don't know how you're really going to behave until we have some history. The different aircraft management options for Paradise Jets is basically us recognizing that people have different needs. And through those various needs, we want to provide them with pathways to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And so through experience and through the years of doing this, we've created wide pathways for people to choose. And then we always can fine-tune it as their needs change. Because that's the other thing that's consistent, is that things always change and things are dynamic. So we're not trying to be super rigid, but what we are trying to do is say, here's a fairway you can go down, here's another fairway you can go down, and here's another option to help take what would be a really wide spectrum and to get you going at least in the right direction. What we've become good at is defining best case scenario, worst case scenario, and then trying to predict where you're going to fall on that spectrum. But what a lot of our competition does is, I don't think they're maliciously lying to customers, but they're not describing the spectrum. They're trying to convince you that you fall here on the spectrum, and then when inevitably happens after a couple of years, you realize that you did not actually fall here on the spectrum, and no one described to you that this was on one end and this was on the other. And so what we've ultimately done is just to try and create a more transparent and truthful approach as to you are on a spectrum, and keeping that in mind. The issue is there's multiple spectrums. There's a maintenance spectrum, there's cruise spectrums, there's what the charter market's doing, there's geography. And so as you have all these multiple spectrums, things can get extremely convoluted and unclear. And that's where we step in, is we work very hard to define those spectrums and to anticipate where you are and then communicate with you, hey, you're moving along this spectrum. You said you were only going to fly X amount of hours a year. Now you're doing Y. Because you're doing Y hours, it's now we have to make adjustments on all these other spectrums. A huge part of what we do is expectation management. In fact, we define success as setting an expectation and meeting or exceeding that expectation. So when we're managing an airplane, it's really, you just have to think of it as truly managing a company. And that's relatable to a lot of our clients. But it's difficult to get your mind around at first because this oversimplification happens of, we've got an airplane and you think of your airplane as your car, and I'm gonna go from point A to point B. Well, how complicated is that? And so our uniqueness is devised out of this educational process we want to take you through, because it's not like your car. We are extremely regulated between the DOT, the IRS, the FAA, and there's all these rules that go into how often a pilot can fly and how often an airplane can fly and what maintenance has to be done. And so what we really do is we're constantly threading a needle to accomplish what it is that you want it to accomplish. And so this oversimplification of, well, I just want to fly from point A to point B, I just want to buy an airplane, I just want to hire a crew to fly it, well, that's fine if you're willing to be super flexible. Most people aren't flexible. They want to be able to go fly their airplane when they need to fly it, and thus it needs to be professionally managed. And all of these various spectrums that we're dealing with, they have to be talked about and they have to be discussed. And we are willing to go as far along inside of those spectrums. We're willing to go as deep as you want to understand them, or we're just willing to be able to tell you, here's one end, here's another, and you can decide where you want to fall on that spectrum. But it's a matter of setting the expectation. This is the spectrum. Well, I want to be out over here. That's illegal, or that's not possible, or physics won't allow that. My airplane can only fly for 3 hours. Well, I want to fly for 4. We got the wrong airplane. So those are the issues, and how oversimplification drips into our industry. And that's how we try and set ourselves apart. Not everybody appreciates that. Because now you need to have some level of understanding of what all these spectrums are, but it is the key to success.